Let's see. So after Fox finishes talking, for the most part, Gwynn gets up, and this is Gwynn giving their justification for rejecting the PFI. Okay, so and everything he's about to say, this is the first time that it's been conveyed after 7 years. And everything that he's about to say, he could have told me the day I turned in my proposal in February of 2016. Everything he's about to say could have been said to me then when they could have rejected the PFI then. Every other DOT, every other local government that I've proposed the PFI to has said no right off the bat. For one, I've considered to be stupid ass bureaucratic excuse after another. But here they wait 7 years and 2 studies. I spend thousands of hours, thousands of dollars, travel thousands of miles over a 7-year period, thinking that the PFI is going to get honest consideration. And it never was. It never was. So the joke's on me. Haha. They got a good one on me. You know, they jerked me around for 7 years, and then he gets up, and this is what he has to say.
And, you know, one thing just for a little bit of context, and, you know, I kind of anticipated that Mr. Parsons would come in here today not happy.
He anticipated I wasn't going to be happy coming in. It wasn't a question of anticipating. I sent him angry emails. I was pissed off, and he knew I was pissed off, and he knows why I'm pissed off. Okay, so what doesn't get explained by him, and no one on the board asks, why was I angry? Why was I upset? What you're supposed to believe, and what was reported by Tampa Bay Times, I'm pissed off because they didn't pick my design. You know, that these hard-working, conscientious civil servants who care about the public, care about the taxpayers, care about doing a good job, okay, they pick the best project for, you know, everyone else, all the stakeholders. They pick the best project. Right, and the PFI just didn't measure up. That's what we're supposed to accept. All of it's BS. It's just big fat lie. But anyhow, this is what he has to say. Yes, he knew I was going to be upset because I sent him angry emails, but nobody cares about why I was upset. Nobody cares. And he's not going to explain it. Because to explain why I was upset would be him admitting to being a big, you know, fucking fraud.
He's a smart guy. I give him a lot of credit for he invented a concept.
That's the first time I've heard anything positive about the PFI. I know this is all disingenuous garbage he's spouting here. Never, not one time was I complimented on the PFI by anyone from FDOT. Anyone, anywhere with FDOT, from any district. I've proposed the PFI in multiple districts before this one, and never was it received with any positivity ever. So what he's saying here is completely disingenuous. It's just total lie. He's never had anything good to say to me or about the PFI, not once.
And in a sterile, computerized model environment, it looks like it could work in some ways.
In a sterile, computerized environment, it looks like it can work in some ways. I mean, that is such bullshit. I mean, first off, what he just said invalidates the feasibility study altogether. why do a feasibility study? I mean, the tools that you use to evaluate the feasibility of any design is in a computer. You use CAD, you use Synchro, you use vSim. Okay, that's what we do as engineers to evaluate a project before it's built. And he's just saying, yeah, I mean, it could work in those sterile computer environments. Then, you know, why do it? Why use Synchro? Why use vSim? Why use CAD? Why do any of that? Just pick the one you want. I mean, that's what they've done in essence on this project, is just pick the one that makes him feel good. That makes him feel good. For whatever reason, it makes him feel good. All of the engineering, all the analysis, you know, all of the software tools that were used, all the software tools available to be used, is just, you know, it's just a sterile environment that doesn't match reality at all. So let's just dismiss all that and go with my gut here. This is a guy that's probably never done any actual engineering himself. He's got a PE, but as far as I can tell, he's always been in an administrative position, or he's been a salesman for a consultant, because he used to work at AECOM. He was a vice president at AECOM before he became district secretary at FDOT. There's no conflict there at all. There's no appearance of impropriety there at all, right? The traffic consultant on this study is AECOM, and this guy is a former vice president of AECOM, but no conflict. So in this sterile environment, it looks like the PFI could work some ways. Okay, but that's saying that it doesn't work in other ways. Well, what other ways? Because they've never once identified how the PFI doesn't work.
But it's never been used anywhere. And when you look at how drivers would have to navigate.
So yeah, it's new. It's new. Hasn't been built anywhere. There always has to be a first time, doesn't there? But he wants that to be somebody else. Okay, the PFI was brought to him because of the opportunity to build a better project, but he doesn't want to be the one. This is a NIMBY attitude in reverse. This is reverse NIMBY. You know, the NIMBY is not in my backyard. The NIMBY is somebody that says, hey, build the project in somebody else's yard, not in mine. Let them make the sacrifice, not me. You know, the DOTs hate NIMBYs. You know, every DOT, you know, every bureaucrat with the DOT hates NIMBYs, because NIMBYs, you know, it's like, well, if we're not going to build it in your yard, you're telling us we got to build it in somebody else's yard just because you don't want it, right? So they are always critical of NIMBYs, and yet here he is doing it himself. Well, I don't want to have to do something new here that's going to benefit the public, that's going to save a lot of money, that's going to reduce impacts. Let somebody else do it. Somebody else should do it. It came to you, jerk off. It came to you, and you have an obligation in serving the public and serving the taxpayers, which is what presumably you're supposed to be doing. You have a responsibility to evaluate it and do so in a rigorous and competent, objective manner. You have that obligation. Okay, so you're rejecting the PFI because it's good for you. That's why. And the board is happy with that because the bridge enriches them in their quest for 54 being a freeway.
Navigate, and pedestrians would have to navigate. You're coming from all kinds of different directions.
Oh yeah, all kinds of different. I mean, it's just chaos. You got dogs and cats living together. I mean, this is just fear-mongering with no engineering backing what he's saying. He's talking completely out his ass. In fact, there's really no difference between the PFI and CFI. I mean, they constantly say, oh, they're both kind of the same. Well, in terms of confusion and people coming from misdirection, going that way, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what happens at a CFI, but they're building it. I think the PFI is more straightforward for people than the CFI. You know, you could be saying the same thing about a roundabout. Roundabouts are crazy, right? For Americans, people don't have to stop, take their turn. You know, everybody's just going this way, that way. It's, you know, it's just chaos at a roundabout. Well, they're being built.
It'd be potentially very confusing. It could cause a lot.
Potentially very confusing. So everything he's just saying here is not substantiated at all by any engineering. There's no engineering behind it. You know, they have the FHWA driver simulator they could use to evaluate just how confusing is a PFI. Is it confusing? Who knows? You know, you don't say, well, it is potentially confusing, therefore we're not going to build it. No, you answer that question in the affirmative with engineering to back it up. You know, have people drive it virtually, and if they experience confusion to a level that makes the intersection not work, then it becomes a fatal flaw. Then you can dismiss it. But confusion, everybody's confused driving, no matter where they are, no matter what they're driving through. People will be confused, and if you put somebody in an environment that they've never driven before, first time somebody's gotten to a roundabout, don't tell me that they weren't confused. This guy would say, well, don't ever build a roundabout because people will potentially be confused. So there should be no roundabouts in the United States today because of potential driver confusion. The DDI, the diverging diamond, has people cross over to the opposite side of the road and back. Now, is that potentially confusing for people? Does that violate driver expectation? Don't build any. Don't build any. But he would probably say, well, you can evaluate it, and then somebody else could build it, and then we can see how it works, because they were the ones that took the risk. Okay, so his unwillingness to try something new costs the public billions and will cost the taxpayers tens of millions. But he's okay with that. It's a sacrifice he's willing to make.
A lot of problems, and we just didn't think this was the right environment to try out a brand new concept.
I'm going to repeat this in a bit. I'm going to repeat myself. I've been very repetitive throughout this, and you know, I'm not apologizing for it at all. I see something and I have to speak to it, and unfortunately a lot of this just kind of goes over and over. But this issue of it not being an appropriate environment to try something new, the whole goddamn point of the PFI is to be an alternative, a low impact, low cost, high efficiency alternative to building a grade separation on an arterial intersection. The only reason that a grade separation would be considered in the first goddamn place is because it's a busy goddamn intersection. That's why you build a grade separation. That's what the PFI is meant to address. Okay, as an avoidance alternative to building a grade separation. This is exactly the environment that the PFI should be built, so that you don't build that monstrosity that they're now proposing to build. Is this guy a complete fucking idiot? Or is he just, you know, a DOT version of a NIMBY? Or he's just a liar and a fraud to do what the corrupt politicians want him to do. I don't know what it is, but he's an idiot. I mean, it comes across that way to me. Stupidity.
If it failed, it would fail spectacularly.
Yeah, if it fails spectacularly. Again, that's pure speculation. How does it fail? How does the PFI fail? We know the SPUI signal is going to fail. They know the SPUI signal fails. They won't admit it. They don't acknowledge that the SPUI signal will fail. That 41 will be a parking lot with the SPUI signal. They will not acknowledge that. But here he is, fear-mongering, saying, oh, but if it fails spectacularly. Really? How does it fail? How? What is the failure mechanism? Now, I've modeled it for a number of years. I don't see the failure. There is the potential for internal blocking, but that can be, that's resolvable by just putting in detection to prevent that from happening. But we know the SPUI fails. I think 3 miles of queue, a 3-mile backup, and 20 plus minutes of delay, I consider that a failure. I consider that failing. But in some twisted way, in the FDOT mind, that's not failure at all.
Know that the other concepts have worked. We know that they work other places in similar environments. So that was another factor in ours. It's not like we can go and see how did this work somewhere else. Did it work in a very large intersection? Perhaps someday they'll try it out at a smaller intersection. That's not.
No, they won't. No, they won't, because every DOT I've encountered has the same mindset. Well, maybe somewhere else it'll be good to try, but not here. That's been the case every single time. And every time I propose the PFI, it benefits the public. It benefits the taxpayers. It benefits the environment. It benefits the community every single time, or I wouldn't propose it. I wouldn't propose the PFI, just knowing that it's new, knowing that it would be, there's some risk in building something new, that whenever I propose it, it is far better than what they are considering building. Far, far better. Every time. And when they say no to me, okay, yeah, it robs me of an opportunity. And sure, I would make millions. Of course, I've always had the position that if I got one project where I received a value engineering payout of multi-million dollars, I would then vacate the patent and let it go to the public domain. I was always willing to do that. I only wanted it to pay off one time. Okay? But every time they say no to me, every time they say no to the PFI, it's the public that loses. It's the public they're penalizing for their own benefit, for their own convenience, for their own security, for their own comfort. They are punishing the public, punishing the taxpayers every time. The people they are supposed to be serving. But we know that that's a lie, right? We know that they don't serve the public. The public they're the peasants to these people. They're the serfs. The public serves them. It is they grace us with their presence. That's the FDOT mindset. That's the DOT mindset everywhere. That they grace us. That we should feel privileged in their presence.
Not quite as busy, but just wasn't the right environment.
Yeah, just wasn't the right environment.
You don't see in the numbers, but
yeah, you don't see that in the numbers. All the numbers favor the PFI. They all do. So, but let's just forget about that. Let's just dismiss all of the results of years of study and just say Well, my gut tells me that this is just not a very good place to try this out.
It's never been used anywhere.
Yeah, okay. And never will.
And, you know, one thing.
I guess that's it. So, what he just said here in, what, a minute? Dismissing the PFI. No engineering behind it whatsoever. It took him 7 years to say this. I went through hell over the last 7 years. Okay, this was going to be the last chance that I would have for the PFI to pay off for me and all my work. This is so enraging to me. It's so dismissive and so trite that the fucking gall of this piece of dog shit to get up here after 7 years and say this bullshit. This is the first time any of this has been said. It's not documented anywhere. Of course, it now will be, because they have to allegedly, I mean, according to federal highways, they're supposed to substantiate or justify why they reject an option. So how are they going to reject the PFI? They're going to say, well, yeah, I mean, in all the numbers, it's the best project, and yeah, it does save a lot of money, but this is just not the appropriate place to try something new. And I'm sure that if federal highways will say, yeah, they're right, it's not yeah, we'll go with that, right? But, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So that's federal highways attitude.